It is now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Reverend Glenn Swain. Reverend Glenn is an ordained CSL minister and founder of Heartfelt Farewells, a family-focused memorial service that honors the deceased loved one with comforting words, remembrances, and original music. Before starting Heartfelt Farewells, Reverend Glenn was a staff minister at the Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living for more than 2 years. Previously, he was a member of New Vision Center for 16 years, where he was a practitioner, a group leader, a teacher, and a board member. Please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Reverend Glenn Swain.
Good morning, CLF. Greetings this morning. This is Reverend Glenn Swain with you, and it's indeed my pleasure to be here with you this morning. It's nice to fill in for your beloved Reverend Sherry, and hopefully she's sleeping in this morning. Yes, and again, just a great pleasure to be here with you. And I know that usually when you see me, I'm usually playing the guitar and singing. Won't be doing that today, but I do have, I think, an interesting and thought-provoking talk for you today. And, we're going to really touch on trusting and having faith in God. Usually in January, many spiritual centers who follow Ernest Holmes and other teachings, they'll do the 4 books, what I call the 4 Gospels of New Thought from the Science of Mind magazine. And they include the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. Those are usually the 4. And usually ministers will take 1 week each January to go back over the basics and the principles of things. I'm not going to do that today, but I'm going to touch on briefly the first one, which is the thing itself. And what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about the thing itself, which is God or spirit. And I'm going to touch on science. And then we're going to talk about something that's very relative to all of us right now. Whenever I do talks, I like to do something that's very current, with people, it's current in the news or things that people are dealing with to really be current, and maybe even talk about social situations. So we're going to touch on that also. So we're going to build a foundation of trusting in God, touching science, talk about a social issue that we're all dealing with right now, and we'll all bring it on back home at the end. So you ready to go? All right, good. Science of mind is really the study of first cause itself, which is God. Now, many of you may have had the foundation class or have been in this teaching for a long time. You're very familiar, first of all, with the Science of Mind textbook, obviously. And also you may be very familiar that about halfway through, you have the learning circle itself, the metaphysical chart, as we call it. And we also know that, of course, that it is broken into 3 different sections itself. And with the above section being God. And of course, this goes by many names: God, Spirit, Absolute, the Changeless, what else? The Great I Am, Logos. There's many names that Ernest Holmes came up with for this one first cause itself. And so this is really one of the first things that whenever you take foundation class or start into a spiritual center, that you really start learning this, that God is one, and we are one with God itself. And so it is a spirit that all things are made out of, and it's a spirit whose energy and that we can use, and we use each and every day ourselves. So we come to trust this God, this spirit, because first of all, this spirit is working through us as us each and every time in anything that we do. This spirit, this God has its center in any and everything, of course. And the Spirit also works through us when we recognize that divine power itself. As Ernest Holmes used to say, that there is a power greater than I am, and we can use it. And so that's the power of God itself. And so when we trust in God, we are knowing, we have faith in God, and we are knowing that there is this one absolute, this one divine spirit that's working through all right now, and is the totality of all things. Now, this week I started thinking about trust and faith, and is it the same thing or is it different? Faith is, the Apostle Paul described faith as this: faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. Again, that's the Apostle Paul. Ernest Holmes once said that this was probably the best definition of faith that he ever found. He said, it is evidence in that it produces a practical result. He writes that it is substance in that it can take form in our affairs. So that's the definition of faith. And again, Ernest Holmes goes back to the Apostle Paul's version or definition of faith itself. So how is this different with trust? For me, trust is more of an action kind of a verb type of word. Trust is a firm belief, partial definition here, partial belief, a truth and the ability or the strength of someone or something, or having a confident expectation of something. So for me, faith is about a belief, and trust is the action behind it. So we can have faith in God. We can also have trust that the God or divine spirit is working through us as us at each and every moment. You know, it was interesting that Ernest Holmes lost faith at times in his life. There is a book that he wrote with a gentleman by the name of Milton Seals. Not too many people know about this book, but they were interviewing each other, they were having a discussion. And Milton Seals asked Ernest Holmes, had he ever lost his faith? And Ernest honestly said, yes, I have. But here's what he said. He had lost his faith at times, but it always returned with greater conviction. It always returned with greater conviction. He called it living reality in our experience. So a lot of people, think of, Ernest Holmes was a great philosopher and great writer and great thinker, spiritual thinker. And but even he at times lost faith in things, but always came back stronger for him, always. So how does this work with science? I know I'm jumping from a belief in God to science, but this is all going to tie in. I promise you. So how does this work with science? As we know in the Science of Mind textbook, the very first two sentences are devoted and mention science. Very interesting. Here's how the Science of Mind textbook begins. We all look forward to a day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand through the visible into the invisible. Science knows nothing of opinion, but recognizes a government of laws whose principles are universal. So Ernest Holmes was always looking at the connection with science and the spiritual itself. And I think by this writing, what he is saying here is that science unites us with God. How about that? Science unites us with God. So if we believe that God is everything, God is the one, then of course science, natural laws, scientific facts would be God also. Ernest Holmes writes in the Science of Mind textbook, listen to this: science seeks to join causes with effects, and by doing so, make practical use of its knowledge. Science is really spiritual, while philosophy leads to true religion. Science is the handmaid of religion and philosophy. Now, handmade is a really interesting word. I do a lot of writing myself, and it's not a word that I would use, frankly. It's kind of a really dated word. So we must look back at the nearly almost 100 years when Ernest Holmes wrote the textbook, again, 1928, and then 1936 revised. And so handmaid is kind of a different type of word, but it basically means something essential to the function or to serve and to assist. So what Ernest Holmes is saying here is that science as a handmaid assists us here now. And I've really been thinking about this week because I've been thinking about, I want to talk about some current issues. One is, of course, been on all of our minds for about a year now, and that is the pandemic. And I started thinking about God and healing. And Ernest Holmes addressed this in the Science of Mind textbook and many other of his writings. One of my favorite quotes by him, and I'm going to read it now, is in the Science of Mind textbook. And he really boils it down for me. And it reads like this: we should have no objection to any form of healing, for anything that helps to overcome suffering is good, whether it be a pill or a prayer. We believe in any method which produces results, for each has its place in the whole. And that's with a capital W, the whole, meaning God itself. Now, whenever I read this quote, where I've said it to others, or maybe in classes I've taught, I actually add to the P alliteration and say God is in the pill, the prayer, the physician, and also the prognosis. So it just makes sense. If God is everything, God is in the pill, the prayer, the prognosis, and the physician itself. So Ernest Holmes wrote about this also, again, more in the textbook. And this is a very, very strong quote. I want to read this, but it's really pertinent to what we're talking about. This is from page 320 of the textbook. Some think they dishonor God when they take a pill. This is superstition. Discard these thoughts and give your entire attention to realizing perfection. Realizing perfection. There's an ongoing debate right now about the vaccine, the pandemic, and this is what I really want to talk about as far as a social issue with you right now. There's certainly a debate going on about it. And I think there are some people who are kind of waiting, taking a wait and see attitude, and maybe afraid of some reactions, and some people, and maybe some people just don't believe in science. They don't believe in the vaccine, don't believe in science. I happened to see a sign the other day, by the way, where someone who was holding a sign that read, what did it read? I got it. A COVID-19 vaccine equals death. I found it quite interesting. We'll put them down for a no for the vaccine, first of all. So there's certainly some reluctance out there, and maybe some untruths going on, conspiracies and things. And so I know there's some reluctance out there with it. And some I might understand because it's well documented with great clarity now, some of the horrendous things that maybe this government has done, doing experiments on people and different vaccines and things, and people were lied to. So I do understand that. And again, it's been documented with great clarity. But I do want to talk about this vaccine and our feelings around it. Here's what I think. I think these vaccines, whether it be Pfizer or Moderna or the couple others that are coming on, I think they are a medical miracle. I think they're a medical and spiritual miracle. They're a scientific miracle. The reason why is because the vast majority of vaccines take years to do all the trials and get it perfected, then get it okayed through the proper channels to be released onto the public. And when you think about it, this pandemic started really last January. We first started getting word about it just about exactly a year ago from where we are right now. So for 24/7 scientists were working with natural laws and with God working through them as them, Spirit working through them as them, to come up with a vaccine to make us healthy, to actually save lives. And I found that amazing. Scientists around the world working 24/7 on this, and they did it in record time. That is a miracle. That is an absolute miracle to me. And I give great thanks for all these people who were taking part of this and are doing it still right now. So I understand that getting the vaccine is a very personal decision, but there may be a question that you may want to ask yourself, that if we deny something in our lives, are we denying God? So if someone would be denying the vaccine, for instance, are they denying God? It's a really good question. I think that's a good question for us to take throughout this week of some of the things we may be facing, or maybe the decision to make, whether it be around the vaccine or something else, that if we are denying something, are we denying God in that moment? Now, certainly we know about discernment and have good knowledge of discernment and good judgment. And we're not here to act foolish or anything like that. And discernment is a noble act for sure. But I think we can discern on a decision and trust in God for what is best for us. This, again, this vaccine, in my opinion, is making people healthy, and it is saving lives. I will tell you a personal story very quickly, and I wouldn't sit here and talk about something that maybe I haven't done myself, or profess something that I haven't really thought about or done. But I have been vaccinated with both shots of the Pfizer vaccine for COVID-19. And I will tell you, I had no reaction. And both times when I was getting the shot down in Chandler, the Chandler Community College, I sat in my car and just divine gratitude of the absolute miracle, the medical and scientific miracle that I was taking part in right then. And I just really give great thanks and great appreciation for it. Because again, so many people worked on this for a long time, 24/7. So I found it to be just an absolute miracle. I also know too, when I was having my second shot, I was thinking, oh, this is amazing. This really shows that if we come together, look what we can achieve. That's another thing that I just want to briefly mention, is that this scientists and scientific facts, these people working on this to get a vaccine to get out to the market to save lives, these people came together and were working together to come up with a solution. And I think it's a really good example, again, if people in the world could come together, be one, since we're already one anyway, to really come together and really be one and know that for a fact, look what we can achieve. We can achieve these incredible things. I know we can. So I think we can rest assured and trust in God, have a faith in God, like this vaccine, for instance, that we can trust in it, and knowing that it's here to help others. Again, I go back to Ernest Holmes' words here. He says, we should have no objection to any form of healing, for anything that helps to overcome suffering is good. It's good. So again, I know this is a very personal decision for each and every person. And you have your own discernment and judgment to make on that. But I know for me, and the question I ask things again all the time, if I'm denying something, am I denying God? And sometimes I find that I am, and it's a question that I have to go deeper with myself. So as we wrap up this morning, I really want to kind of go over very quickly. Today, what we talked about is having this faith in the divine, in God, in divine spirit, and knowing that as knowing me and all of you being sons and daughters of God, that we are made in that image of the divine, and this divine spirit working through us as us, we create our world through it, and we use that power when we recognize it. And sometimes when we don't even recognize it, it's still working for us, right? And knowing that this, of course, if everything is God, everything is science, and science is God, and God is science itself, and that includes all scientists too, and all kind of the vaccines and inventions and things that are coming up to make us healthier and more whole, and saving lives also. And again, when it comes to something like the vaccine, knowing and affirming that, yeah, you know what, that's God too. That is God too. And it's okay to have a discernment about it, and then ask our questions again. If we are denying something, are we denying God itself? So that's our work this week, to really look at the things that we are perhaps denying for ourselves, then having that discernment around it, and wondering, is there some reason why we're not choosing that, or do we not really have a trust, a faith in God itself? Because as we know, God is in and of all things, and all of us, all around us, and the center is everywhere. So why not trust God? Yeah, let's have faith. With that, dear ones, let's go into a time of prayer. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes wherever you're at. You can close our eyes and let's take a deep breath in. Let it out slowly. Let's take another deep breath in. What a divine pleasure it is to be here on this morning with all these beloveds online, knowing and affirming that there is just this one God, this one first cause, this one absolute that is in the very heart of each and every person and is the totality of each and everything. Knowing that this one divine spirit just works through all as all. It is this perfect place, this divine lighthouse, this inner whisper of the one, knowing that God is all is God, always has been and always will be. And I know and affirm that I, Reverend Glenn, above this one divine spirit that working through me as me, is this one spirit, the very heart of who I am in this uncorrupted place, is this divine spirit, this eternal whisper of perfect knowledge and wisdom and all knowing. And I know that it is through this divine spirit that I do my work into this earthly plane right now. With each and every step I walk in this holy ground, these holy steps of the divine, for I'm divinely guided at each and every turn, each and every decision. And I know that I have this divine faith in God, and I trust in it. And in this knowing that I've set here forth now, I now speak my truth for each and every person within the sound of my voice right now. I know and affirm that each person, the very heart of who they are have this one divine spirit within them, this one perfection, this one perfect whisper, this perfect knowledge that is in me and in all others. I know this to be a fact and truth, and knowing that as each and every person within the sound of my voice goes throughout this day and throughout this week, that they tap into this divine whisper within, this perfect knowledge, this divine logos, knowing and affirming that they are guided with any kind of decision they have to make on this day and throughout this week, whether it be about the vaccination or making a move here or doing this or doing that. I know that they tap into this divine whisper, knowing they get the perfect answer, the perfect question. And I'm so grateful that there is this one divine law that simply works perfectly and manifests what has been said here now in this prayer. I give great thanks for this fact in this divine knowing. So in this divine knowing, with peace, love, and joy, great happiness and faith, trust in God, I release this prayer into universal law, knowing that it is simply done. It is done so right now because I have proclaimed it here now. And for this I give great thanks. And so it is. Amen.